I stepped onto my porch and saw a posted notice slapped across my fence, the morning sun hitting the red stamp like a warning. Sheila, the HOA. Karen stood by my mailbox telling the tow crew I'd violated aesthetics, and she read the so-called rule like it was gospel. So I pulled out the original plat permit with my name stamped across the corner, and the whole neighborhood stopped when I said, "This fence is legally mine," and watched her freeze. "Touch it," and answer to me, I told her. Finally, someone fought back. The first thing I saw that morning was the red slip on my windshield. For a second, my sleepy brain thought it was a flyer, maybe a takeout menu jammed under the wiper. Then I stepped out onto the driveway and the letters snapped into focus. Towing notice. My chest tightened. The notice was taped dead center on the glass of my delivery truck, bright red against the white paint. A flatbed tow truck idled at the curb, backup lights still glowing, winch cable already unspooled like a tongue hanging out. "Ma'am, ready for the initial hook," the driver called over his shoulder. Sheila Kramer stood at the edge of my driveway, arms folded, HOA badge clipped to her cardigan like it was a police shield. Her lips curled into something halfway between a smile and a smirk when she saw me. "Good morning, Mr. Ward," she said. "You've had ample notice. The vehicle is in violation. Today, it goes." I walked closer to the truck, heartbeat pounding in my ears. The paper crinkled under my fingers as I peeled it back to read. Bright red header, HOA logo, final towing order in bold, effective date today, filed time 6:31 a.m. "It's 6:40, I said. "You filed this 9 minutes ago. We posted your warning last week." She flicked her eyes at the tow driver. "He's been very patient." The driver looked anywhere but at me. "I'm just here on the work order, sir." I took a breath, kept my voice level. "What covenant am I violating exactly?" Sheila's smile thinned. "Commercial vehicles may not be parked in driveways overnight. Section 12. B. It's all in your handbook." I read the handbook, I said. "Twice. There is no Section 12B. She took a step closer. Perfume, cutting through the thin chill of the Arizona morning. "Mr. Ward. This isn't a debate. Your truck is an eyesore. It lowers property values. You were told to move it. You chose not to. Actions have consequences." The tow truck's winch motor whined to life with a low electric whir. Cable clinked against metal as the driver took up slack. The sound stabbed straight into my spine. "Hold up," I said, raising a hand. "Nobody's touching that truck until I see something in writing that matches the actual covenants I signed." Sheila's jaw moved once like she was grinding down an answer she'd rather spit. "You want something in writing?" "You're holding it." I flipped the notice over. On the back, in small print, it referenced Bylaw 12B, Commercial Vehicle Prohibition. No section number like that existed in the packet I'd saved on my home server. I knew because I'd read every line before I ever parked my truck here. "That bylaw doesn't exist," I said quietly. "You made it up." Her eyes narrowed. For just a second, the polished HOA persona slipped and I saw the steel underneath. "Tomorrow," she said, dropping her voice so the driver couldn't hear, "the truck won't be here. I made sure of that. You can either make this easy on yourself or you can drag it out. It won't change the result." A soft, buzzing sound drifted overhead. I looked up. A small quadcopter drone hummed along the street at roofline height, slowing as it passed my house. Its camera nose dipped toward my driveway like a curious bird. "New HOA toy," Sheila said lightly. "Helps us document violations. Keeps everyone honest." I pulled my phone from my pocket and hit the side button. The screen lit with a soft click. I opened the camera and started recording, framing Sheila the tow truck, the notice on my windshield. "What do you think you're doing?" she snapped. "Documenting," I said. "Keeps everyone honest." For a moment we just stood there, two middle-aged people on a quiet cul-de-sac staring each other down while a tow truck idled between us and a drone circled above. The whole scene felt surreal, like I'd walked into someone else's argument. "This truck is how I pay my mortgage," I said. "It feeds my family. You don't get to just erase it because you don't like looking at it. You chose to bring a business into a residential neighborhood," she said. "Our job is to protect the community. If you can't follow simple aesthetic guidelines, maybe this isn't the right fit for you. The word protect made something hot flare behind my ribs. Protect who from what? A white delivery truck with my company's logo in blue on the side. The tow driver cleared his throat. "Ma'am, I gotta know. Are we doing this today or not?" Sheila glanced back at him, then at my phone still pointed in her direction. For the first time, she seemed to remember she wasn't just talking to me, she was being recorded. "Given Mr. Ward's attitude," she said, smoothing her cardigan, "we'll extend him one more courtesy. 24 hours. He moves it by tomorrow morning or it's gone. No further warnings." She turned to me. "I'll have the second notice sent today. You'll want to read it carefully." The winch motor powered down with a fading whine. The driver nodded at me, almost apologetic, and began reeling the cable back into its housing. The drone drifted on, continuing its patrol down the street like nothing had happened. "You're making a mistake," I said. "No," Sheila replied, already walking away along the sidewalk as if the conversation were over. "I'm enforcing standards." I watched her go, her HOA badge catching the light with each step. The drone's faint buzz faded into the distance. The only sound left was the low rumble of the tow truck as it pulled away. Inside my chest, the shock settled into something heavier, denser. Not just anger, something closer to insult. I'd spent 20 years building a reputation as the guy who always showed up on time, who never missed a delivery, who kept his equipment clean and his books cleaner. I'd picked this neighborhood because it looked stable, quiet, predictable. Now, one woman with a clipboard had decided my livelihood didn't fit her vision. My phone vibrated in my hand with a sharp buzz. A banner slid down the screen from the HOA app. Second notice issued. Non-compliant vehicle. Pay or tow. The timing was perfect. Too perfect. I stared at the notification thumb hovering over it, then hit save on the video instead. The little cloud icon filled in with a soft ping. Across the street, one of my neighbor's curtains twitched closed. Another garage door eased down slowly, as if the house itself didn't want to be seen watching. Above me, the sky was bright and empty again, but I could still feel the drone's camera on the back of my neck like a spotlight that hadn't quite shut off. Tomorrow, she'd try this again. She'd made sure of it. So would I. The compliance letter landed in my inbox just after noon, wrapped in the same clipped politeness the HOA used whenever they were about to swing a hammer and call it procedure, subject line Compliance Letter 47B, Aesthetic Continuity. I opened it expecting a follow-up to the towing mess from that morning. Instead, I found a 2-paragraph lecture about visual cohesion, non-intrusive commercial presence, and a warning that my delivery truck violated the community's aesthetic continuity guidelines. At the top, bolded, was something I'd never seen in any version of the HOA Covenants Compliance Section 47B. I set my sandwich down and hit Command F on the PDF I'd downloaded when I bought the house. 47B returned nothing. Continuity came up once for fencing materials, not vehicles. So here I was less than 12 hours after Sheila tried to tow my truck, staring at a second made-up rule. My phone buzzed. Howard's name flashed across the screen. "You got the letter?" he asked, his voice gravelly even through the speaker. "Yep," I said. 47B, never heard of it. That's because it doesn't exist," he said. "I'm close by." "You home. Kitchen table," I said. "Covenants open. World falling apart." "Good. Don't respond to her. I'm coming over." 10 minutes later, the doorbell chimed. Howard looked tired in a way that didn't come from lack of sleep, more like years of dealing with Sheila had ground down the edges of anyone unlucky enough to share a zip code with her. He carried a manila folder under his arm. "Walk me through it," he said as he stepped in. I pushed the laptop toward him and opened the email again on my phone. He skimmed it fast, mouth tightening. "There she goes again," he muttered. "Aesthetic continuity. 47B, her signature special. This morning she tried to tow the truck, I said. Now she's inventing whole chapters." "Sheila escalates when someone doesn't fold immediately," Howard said. "You didn't hand her the win, so now she's making you the example." "Why me?" I asked. "Half the guys around here have work trucks." Howard opened his folder. Inside were HOA spending breakdowns and payment summaries, columns of numbers, vendor names, recurring charges. He slid one page toward me. "Look here," he said. "Ridgeview Compliance Solutions." A highlighted amount sat next to it, $72,000 annually. "What is that?" I asked. Her vendor, Howard said. She pushed it through 2 years ago, claimed it was to streamline enforcement. But no one in this neighborhood has ever seen a compliance officer besides Sheila herself. "I thought you were treasurer," I said. "I was," he said, letting out a dry laugh. She blocked my resignation twice. Said the board needed continuity. What the board actually needed was someone to sign off on invoices. He tapped the page again. "This vendor, no contract available. No copies in the records. Payments always routed through a masked ACH. And nobody questioned it." He gave me a look. People questioned. Sheila answered by citing confidentiality clauses and administrative discretion. Most folks don't want drama. They pay their dues, keep their lawns under 3 inches, go to work, and hope the HOA leaves them alone. He leaned back in the chair and crossed his arms. "But people like you folks who run their own business, folks who actually read the covenants. You're dangerous to her." "Dangerous," I repeated. "Because I know how to read, because you won't accept the universe according to Sheila," he said. "She picks one homeowner every few months, pushes them until they break, and uses that to keep everyone else in line." Outside, a motorcycle revved somewhere down the street. Inside, the kitchen felt too quiet. Howard closed his folder and stood. "Come on, I want to show you something." We walked to the clubhouse. The air was warm, the sky hard blue, the kind of day where everything looks peaceful until you scratch the surface. As we approached, a few neighbors glanced at us the way people do when they hear sirens, but hope it's not their block. The clubhouse lobby was empty except for the bulletin board. Howard pointed to the laminated approved vendor list. At the bottom, under Administrative 1 line, was covered with a strip of opaque tape. I stepped forward. "She just taped over it. She said it was a printing error," Howard replied. "Said they'd fix it soon. That was almost a year ago. I could see faint lettering under the tape enough to know it wasn't an accident." The clubhouse door opened behind us. "Well," Sheila said, "look who's back." She walked in, heels tapping like she owned the tile beneath them. "Howard," she said. "I thought you were done meddling. Just helping a neighbor understand the covenants," he said lightly. She turned to me. "Mr. Ward, I hope you've read your new compliance letter." "Oh, I read it," I said. "I didn't find 47B in the covenants. Maybe you can point me to the page." Her jaw flexed. "The board has discretion to update aesthetic standards." "Sure," I said. "But updates require a vote. When was that?" "Midnight in your living room." Her expression hardened. "You're out of line. You're out of rules," I replied. Her eyes narrowed. "If you think you can hide behind technicalities, you're mistaken. Your truck will be gone within 24 hours if you don't comply." My phone buzzed. Another HOA notification slid across the screen. Second notice. 24 hours. I swiped it away and froze when I saw the email right under it. ACH Statement. Monthly Vendor Distribution. I opened it. There it was. $6,000. Routing number ending in the same digits Howard had shown me. The HOA wasn't just bending rules. They were running money through a vendor no one had ever seen. And now I understood exactly why Sheila needed me gone. The envelope was already bent when I pulled it from the mailbox like someone had shoved it in harder than necessary. Meadow Ridge, HOA. Formal notice was stamped across the front. No return address, no pleasantries. Just the logo and my name. I tore it open right there at the curb. Final towing order, the header read. Below that in bold the line that made my stomach dip. Scheduled towing 800 a.m. Tomorrow. The language was all business failure to comply, non-compliant vehicle, irrevocable action. But it was that one line that stuck. 8 a.m. Tomorrow. A countdown in black ink. Someone coughed behind me. I looked up to see one of my neighbors on his morning walk pretend to adjust his earbuds while his eyes flicked from the paper to my truck and back again. He nodded once, almost apologetic, then kept going without a word. Back inside, I laid the notice on my kitchen counter next to my keys phone and stress that had been slowly piling up since sunrise the day before. My phone buzzed. A notification from the neighborhood Facebook group popped up. Sheila Kramer is live now. I tapped it. The video framed her perfectly in front of the clubhouse HOA badge, shining hair done. She spoke into her phone like she was addressing a press conference. And we all agreed when we bought here that we'd maintain standards, she was saying. We can't let one person ignore the rules we all follow. So tomorrow morning that truck is gone. We will be enforcing the towing order at 8 a.m. sharp. The comments flowed underneath. About time. Rules are rules. Can't have commercial fleets taking over the street. A few brave souls typed. Which rule? And is this even in the covenants? Those comments vanished almost as fast as they appeared. I ended the stream and stared at my reflection in the black screen for a second. Sheila wasn't just pushing paper at me. She was building a story, one where I was the villain neighbor and she was the brave defender of property values. If she was going to write fiction, I needed facts. Every single one I could get. I went out to the garage and flicked on the overhead light. The familiar smell of oil rubber and cardboard filled the space. My delivery truck sat outside in the driveway, but in here I had my backup set of tools, a pegboard full of wrenches, my old tool bench, a corkboard that usually held schedules and route maps. Today, it would hold something else. I cleared the bench, stacking old invoices and a half-disassembled drill to one side. Then I grabbed a fresh legal pad, a pack of sticky notes, and a roll of painter's tape. If Sheila wanted a war, this was my war room. I spread the towing notice flat on the bench and smoothed out the creases. Next to it, I taped a printed copy of the fake compliance letter 47B. Beside that, I pinned the original covenant index I'd downloaded from the county website. 3 documents, 3 different realities. I started writing out a timeline on the legal pad. Day 1. Red towing notice. 6:40 a.m. Day 1, verbal threat. Tomorrow, that truck won't be here. Day 1. Noon, compliance letter 47B, email. Day 2, morning. Final towing order, 8 a.m. Tomorrow. The pattern looked worse written out. Each step escalated fast, like she was trying to sprint past the part where anyone could stop her. My phone rang. Howard again. "Got your order?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. 8 a.m. tomorrow. He exhaled sharply. "She's not wasting time. She's live streaming it," I said, "telling the whole neighborhood my truck will be gone." "She loves an audience," he said. "Where are you, garage?" I said. "Tool bench. I'm setting up a timeline." There was a pause, then something like approval in his voice. "Good. I'm 5 minutes away. I've got something you need to see." I hung up and kept working. I printed the ACH statement I'd gotten by mistake and taped that up too. The vendor line glared at me from the paper Ridgeview Compliance Solutions. $6,000 monthly. Routing number ending in digits I already knew by heart. By the time Howard stepped into the garage, the pegboard behind my bench looked like the start of a crime board from some legal drama papers, arrows drawn in pen, dates circled. "Not bad," he said, looking around. "You always over-prepare like this." "I work deliveries and do compliance training for a law firm," I said. "Documentation is kind of my thing." He smiled for the first time since this all started. "Then you're going to like this." He opened his folder and pulled out another set of pages. These were older fax headers, court stamps, grainy print. "This is from a case we handled in 2019, he said, laying them on the bench. Different HOA. Different state. Same vendor. I scanned the page he pointed at. Ridgeview Compliance Solutions, it said. Same name, same last 4 digits of the routing number. Those people were skimming fines, Howard said. Issuing fake violations. Routing payments through a private account, calling it administrative fees. We helped the homeowners sue. They won. Vendor shut down in that county. He tapped the ACH printout I'd taped up. Now it looks like they've moved here, or at least their model did. I looked between the 2 documents, the old case and my neighborhood statement. different addresses, same pattern. So this isn't about my truck, I said. Not really. It's about your money, Howard said, and everyone else's. Your truck just gave them an excuse to swing the stick again. Outside, I heard the faint electric whine of that HOA drone passing by, then the subtle shift of its pitch as it hovered. A red dot of its status light scanned across my driveway like it was painting targets. Feels like being under a microscope, I muttered. That's fine, Howard said. Microscopes work both ways. They magnify things. You've just got to decide what you're pointing them at. My phone buzzed again. Another HOA notification. Prepare vehicle for towing at red. Ensure clear access at 7:50 a.m. They were so sure it was happening that they'd scheduled my cooperation. I stared at the message, then at the wall of paper in front of me. Final order. Fake rule. Vendor payments. Suspicious routing. Case from 2019. It stopped looking like a bunch of unrelated annoyances and started looking like leverage. I opened my text messages, scrolled to a contact I almost never used. D. Harper, senior partner. The man who handled the kind of cases you read about in the financial section, not the neighborhood Facebook group. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard for half a second, then I typed. We need to talk about the HOA's payment route. I think my truck just stepped into something bigger. The HOA didn't even bother pretending this was a friendly gathering. At 3:04 p.m., my phone buzzed with a notification from the association mandatory community meeting. 7:00 p.m. tonight. Attendance required. No agenda. No explanation. Just a time and a threat dressed up as a request. By 6:30, the neighborhood looked like it was migrating toward the clubhouse. People walked in the small clusters, murmuring to each other, glancing toward my truck like it carried a disease. The final towing order still hung on my windshield, fluttering gently in the desert breeze as if counting down the hours until 8 a.m. Howard was waiting on the sidewalk in front of my house, hands shoved deep in his pockets. She's cornering you, he said. That's what this is. An ambush, I asked. A show, he corrected. She needs to stage one. We headed toward the clubhouse together. Above us, the HOA drone floated like a silent moon, drifting from driveway to driveway as if checking who was attending. Its red status light blinked every few seconds, painting a stuttering dot across the pavement. The clubhouse parking lot was overflowing. Inside, folding chairs filled every inch of the main room with residents lined shoulder to shoulder along the walls. Conversations quieted when I walked in. Some people nodded at me sympathetically. Others avoided looking altogether. Sheila stood at the front table dressed in a blazer so stiff it could have been armor. Her hair was perfectly arranged and her HOA badge glinted under the fluorescent lights. She carried a thick navy binder, the same one I'd glimpsed in her live stream earlier, hugged tight to her chest. At exactly 7:00, she stepped up to the microphone. Thank you for coming this evening, she began, voice smooth and confident. We have a serious matter before us, one that affects the integrity of our neighborhood. The wall behind her lit up as she clicked a remote. The projector displayed a photo of my truck, the logo, the side panel, the early morning sun making the white paint look harsh and intrusive. It wasn't a picture taken by a neighbor. It was taken by the drone. There were small gasps in the room. This, she said, tapping the screen with a laser pointer, is what we've been dealing with. A commercial vehicle in violation of our aesthetic standards. After repeated warnings, the homeowner has refused to comply. I opened my mouth to speak, but she raised her palm. You will have your turn, she said. But this board meeting will follow procedure. Howard leaned in behind me. She's stacking the deck. Let her get comfortable. She'll slip. Sheila flipped open her binder. Inside were color-coded tabs, highlights, printed notices, and photocopies of the warnings she'd sent me. As she turned the pages, a sheet slid slightly forward. It was full of columns, numbers, dates, amounts. A bank logo sat in the corner. I could see the faint outline of routing digits, an ACH summary. She saw my eyes track it and quickly covered the page with her hand, sliding it back between other documents. Residents, she continued, your board hired Ridgeview Compliance Solutions to help us maintain our standards. Their recommendations are not suggestions, they are obligations. Howard's breath caught. That's the payment vendor. That's the same template as the fraud case. Sheila clicked to the next slide. Big block letters appeared. Non-compliant vehicle repeated violations, enforcement required. I raised my hand. Are we allowed to speak yet, or does democracy resume later? Sheila pressed a button on the mic base. Mr. Ward, you will wait until recognized. Some people chuckled softly. Others stiffened. I stood. 47AB doesn't exist, I said. The rule you're quoting in your letters is fabricated. I asked 3 board members. None of them have ever seen it. Murmurs rose. Sheila slapped the remote on the table. Sit down. No, I said. You're accusing me publicly. You can hear me publicly. You are out of order, she snapped. And you do not get to dictate how this meeting runs. Howard began drifting along the edge of the room, casual but intentional. He approached the front table under the pretense of getting a better view. Sheila was too focused on me to track him closely. I kept my gaze on her binder. Open the page you hid, I said. The one with the routing numbers. Her face froze. What routing numbers, she said too quickly. Howard was close enough now to reach the binder. He slipped 2 fingers under the edge of the sheet she'd tried to hide. The room's energy shifted instantly. Do not touch HOA documents, Sheila screamed, lunging toward him. The microphone amplified every word at full volume. Several residents flinched. A few sat back stunned. Someone near the wall muttered, Jesus! Sheila slammed the binder shut, clutching it to her chest like a shield. Her composure was gone. Eyes wide, breathing sharp. You're hiding something, someone in the back called out. Yeah, let him see it, another said. The crowd split down the middle, half defending her, half staring with suspicion, sharp enough to cut. This meeting is adjourned, Sheila said, voice trembling but loud. The board will proceed without interference. The projector went black. Chairs scraped across the floor. Voices overlapped in angry waves. I stepped back, pulling out my phone. Harper's contact sat at the top of my messages. I typed 7 a.m. Payment route is wrong. Need to talk. And pressed send. I didn't hire a lawyer, I said as we stepped into the county building. I called my law firm. The automatic doors slid shut behind us, muting the outside noise. Inside, the hall smelled like old carpet and printer toner, the kind of place where decisions were made quietly but echoed for years. Marlene walked beside me, her heels clicking a steady rhythm on the tile. You ready? She asked. As ready as someone with a tow truck scheduled for 8 a.m. Tomorrow can be. She gave a short grin. Good, because once the freeze order goes through, this ends. Completely. The county meeting room was already half full. Residents from Meadow Ridge filled the rows, some cross-armed and scowling others whispering to each other with the tight energy of people who have sensed something big but can't name it yet. At the front, a long table held county staff laptops, open forms stacked in neat piles. Sheila stood off to the side, binder clutched tight, lips pursed like she was waiting for a chance to scold the entire building. Nolan, the HOA's supposed compliance advisor, sat beside her wearing a suit that didn't quite fit and a nervous smile that didn't reach his eyes. Marlene placed our evidence binder prop 2 on the table with a practiced motion. Let's make this simple, she said quietly. We show the truth. They react. That's how hearings work. The county officer, an older man with silver glasses, adjusted his microphone. This is a review of enforcement practices and financial disclosures submitted by Meadow Ridge HOA. Parties will have the opportunity to present documentation. We'll start with the complainant. Marlene nudged me forward. Go ahead. I cleared my throat. My name is Ethan Ward. I'm here because the HOA tried to tow my delivery truck under a rule that doesn't exist. I opened the covenant printout to the index. There is no Section 47B, no commercial vehicle ban, no clause about aesthetic continuity. Sheila let out a sharp laugh. Maybe you don't know how to read legal documents. Funny, Marlene said, stepping forward, because I've spent 20 years reading them. She clicked a button on the projector remote. The screen lit up with the county-filed covenant highlighted, time-stamped, notarized. There is no 47B, she said. There never has been. Whispers surged through the room. Nolan leaned toward Sheila. "You said you verified." "Sit up straight," she hissed without turning her head. Marlene tapped the next tab in the binder. "Now, let's talk about financials." The projector shifted to a new page. The ACH payment history. The vendor line glowed like a warning signal. "Ridgeview Compliance Solutions," she said. $72,000 per year. No contract filed with the county. No disclosure to homeowners. And irregular routing numbers that do not match any legitimate HOA administrative accounts. Someone in the back stood. 72,000. For what? Marlene didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "We believe these payments are being routed through a private account." Gasps erupted. Angry murmurs rolled across the room in waves. Sheila stepped forward, gripping the binder so tightly her knuckles went white. "This is harassment. These people are lying to humiliate me. All we've shown," Marlene said, "are documents you submitted." The county officer held up a hand. "Miss Kramer, please step back." But Sheila wasn't listening anymore. "This neighborhood needs order," she said, eyes darting around the room. "Standards. If we let people like him—" "People like me?" I asked. "You mean homeowners, or people who ask questions?" Several residents nodded, crossing their arms. Others turned away from her completely. A man in the third row stood up. "I want that account frozen until we know what's going on." Another added, "Yeah, freeze the account." The chant caught like a spark in dry grass. "Freeze the account. Freeze the account." Even the county officer seemed taken aback by how fast the room turned. Marlene waited, then spoke clearly into the microphone. "We request an immediate payment hold on all Meadow Ridge HOA disbursements pending investigation." The officer adjusted his glasses, scanned the ACH logs, then the covenant pages, then Sheila's frantic posture. Given the evidence presented, he said the county will place a temporary hold on the HOA's financial route effective immediately. Sheila's face drained of color. "You can't," she whispered. "You don't understand. The payment hold is approved," the officer repeated. "It remains until review is complete." Marlene closed the binder. "Thank you. That's all we needed today." As people began filing out, some furious, some relieved, some stunned, I felt something shift in my chest. For the first time since Sheila taped the first notice to my truck, the weight lifted just enough to breathe. Marlene leaned close. "Tomorrow," she said, "we file the freeze order, and then this whole thing breaks wide open." I nodded, feeling the first real sense of hope in days. Transparency wasn't optional anymore. The post office doors slid open with a tired groan as I stepped inside, holding the thick freeze packet against my chest. Marlene walked beside me, calm as always, while Howard kept glancing over his shoulder like Sheila might leap out from behind a display of bubble mailers. "Certified mail," Marlene said, tapping the envelope. "Once this is stamped, the county can't pretend they didn't see it." I set the packet on the counter. The clerk, a middle-aged man with reading glasses dangling from a chain, lifted it, weighed it with a practiced hand, and slid it under the stamp. "Ready?" he asked. "Do it," I said. The metal stamp came down with a sharp clack. Filed. The sound echoed far louder in my mind than in the room, like something finally clicked into place. Marlene exhaled, satisfied. "That's the official trigger. County will review tonight," she said. "Once they validate your exhibits, the freeze order becomes more than theoretical." Howard nudged me. "Meaning Sheila's fancy payment route stops draining homeowners tomorrow." We stepped outside into the Arizona sun. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number flashed across the screen. "Back off. You're destroying this community. Retract your claims." Attached a blurry photo of my truck circled in red. I showed it to Marlene. "She sent a threat to your phone," she asked. "Sheila's handwriting looks the same," I said. "She labels every notice with those weird sharp R's." "That goes in as Exhibit H," Marlene replied. "Harassment strengthens the freeze case." We drove straight to county records. The building was older columns stained from decades of heat. Inside, papers rustled like restless insects. The clerk behind the counter, a woman with gray hair knotted into a bun, looked up. "You hear about the hearing?" she asked. No, Marlene said, placing the freeze packet on the counter. We're filing the HOA payment route freeze order. The clerk raised an eyebrow. So, you're the ones digging into that 72,000 line? Digging, Howard repeated. More like shoveling out a sinkhole. She flipped through the packet, pausing at Exhibit H. Threats, too. They've escalated, I said. The clerk nodded once firm, as if something had just crossed a threshold in her mind. Give me a moment. She disappeared into the back office. Howard leaned close. Think Sheila knows you're filing right now? She knows everything I said. She probably has a drone outside this building. Marlene smirked. Good, let her record it. The clerk returned with a form attached to our packet and a pen. Sign here. This acknowledges submission for immediate review. I signed. She took the packet, squared the edges, then stamped it with deliberate emphasis. Freeze order received. I didn't realize how tightly I'd been holding my breath until that moment. Something inside me loosened like the first crack of sunlight under a storm cloud. We walked outside. The courtyard in front of the county building was buzzing. Several residents stood around holding their phones pointing upward. A live stream notification pinged my phone. Sheila Kramer is live. The video opened to Sheila standing in front of the county seal hair stiff from too much spray, voice pitched into righteous indignation. Residents, she said, we are under attack. One homeowner. One has submitted fraudulent claims to weaponize county processes. This is not justice. This is sabotage. People behind her looked uncomfortable, shifting, whispering. She jabbed a finger toward the building. They won't shut me down. I won't let them take away what I've built for this neighborhood. Howard snorted. What she's built? A towing empire? Marlene folded her arms. Let her talk. Every word helps us. The live stream comments began flooding in. What's she hiding? Where's the money going then? Freeze their account until we know. Sheila's expression tightened as she glanced at the chat. Her facade cracked for a brief second before she ended the stream abruptly. That, Marlene said, is the sound of someone losing the narrative. My phone dinged again. An email banner slid across the screen. I opened it. Freeze order approved. Effective immediately. For a moment, the street seemed to quiet around me. Cars passed. A door slammed somewhere nearby. But all I heard was the pulse in my ears and the soft vibration of the phone still lit in my hand. Read it, Howard urged. I handed him the screen. He whistled. Effective immediately. That means every payment, every vendor, every routing step stops today. A wave of relief washed through me, heavy and warm. We didn't take anything from her, I said quietly. We just asked for the truth. Marlene placed a hand on the binder under her arm, Prop 3 now fully in play, and now the county's asking for it too. For the first time since the towing notice slapped against my windshield, justice didn't feel hypothetical. It felt real, and it had just begun. The clubhouse doors were already open when I arrived, voices spilling out like the rumble before a storm. My phone buzzed in my hand with the notification that had detonated across the entire neighborhood. HOA Group Post. HOA Bank Account frozen by county. Investigation. The comments under it were a wildfire. Accusations, relief, anger, demands. But before I could refresh, the post vanished. Deleted. The screen flashed post removed by moderator. Of course. Sheila. Residents clustered in small circles as I stepped inside, their faces tight with questions. People who had ignored me for weeks now pointed, whispering to each other, piecing the story together in real time. Howard met me near the front. You see the post before she yanked it? Yeah. I pocketed my phone. She's losing her grip, and she knows it, he said. Look. At the center of the room, Sheila was trying to calm a small group of supporters, her voice sharp but shaking. Listen to me, she insisted. This is a misunderstanding. The county froze the wrong account. It's temporary. One of the residents crossed his arms. You said the towing rule existed. It didn't. Another chimed in. You said the vendor was approved. It wasn't. Sheila tightened her jaw. You think this... This man started all of this with facts. He started it with lies. I stepped closer. Funny, I said, because all I did was show the paperwork you signed. The room stirred. Sheila glared at me. Her binder pressed tight to her chest like a shield. Before she could respond, the lights dimmed slightly and the projector screen clicked on. Marlene stood at the front with the freeze order in her hands. "Thank you all for coming," she said, voice steady, carrying easily over the rising tension. "Tonight's meeting concerns the freeze order filed by the county. Residents deserve transparency." Sheila took a step forward. "I object." "You've objected to everything a woman near the back said. Maybe let someone else talk." Marlene tapped a key. The freeze order letter filled the screen, crisp, official, unmistakable. Effective immediately, she read aloud, "The Meadow Ridge HOA payment route is frozen due to suspected financial irregularities and non-compliant vendor expenditures." Gasps rippled through the room. "This is illegal," Sheila snapped. "You can't just seize an HOA account." "We didn't seize it," Marlene said. "Evidence did." The line hit harder than anything she'd said up to that point. You could feel the shift the moment the room changed sides. A man in the front row raised his hand. "I move to remove Sheila as HOA president." Voices rose instantly. "I second that. She abused the rules. She threatened people. She made up violations. She lied to us." Sheila's face flushed red. "This is a mob. You're reacting without context." "Context," someone replied. "You tried to tow his truck for a rule that doesn't exist." Marlene stepped back, letting the residents take the floor. This wasn't her fight anymore. It was theirs. The secretary, who had remained quiet through most meetings I'd ever seen her at, stood up from her folding chair with a clipboard in hand. "Per HOA bylaws," she said firmly, "any board officer may be removed by majority resident vote." Sheila spun toward her. "Linda, sit down." Linda didn't. "Start the vote." Hands went up. Not slowly, not timidly. Immediately, decisively. Row after row after row. "Those opposed?" Linda asked. 3 hands rose shaky, uncertain. "It passes," Linda announced. "Sheila Kramer is removed as HOA president effective right now." The room erupted not in cheers but in something deeper, a heavy exhale shared by people who had lived under pressure for too long. Sheila stood motionless, binder slipping from her arms, hitting the floor with a dull thud. Papers spilled everywhere. Her eyes darted across the room, searching for an ally, a friend, someone who would step forward. No one did. She backed away, slowly, shaking her head. "You're making a mistake," she whispered. "All of you." But the room had already turned from her. Conversations began building again, louder now, hopeful, relieved, angry, empowered. Howard touched my shoulder. "Ethan," he said quietly, "you need to hear this." I followed him toward the side of the room where his phone screen glowed. A new county alert had come through less than a minute ago. He handed it to me. "County finance alert, full payment route seized for forensic audit. All funds held until investigation complete." I stared at the words until they settled into place. "Seized." Howard murmured. "Not frozen. Seized." The air around us seemed to still for a moment. The HOA payment route, the thing Sheila used to control everything fund, everything threaten everyone, was no longer hers to touch. Justice didn't shout. It landed quietly, decisively in bold black letters on a screen, and it was only the beginning. The gate lifted without hesitation as I eased the delivery truck forward. For the first time since all of this started, the entrance to Meadow Ridge felt like it actually belonged to me, too. The morning sun slid across the hood, and the freshly washed panels caught the light as if relieved to finally be seen, not hidden, not targeted, just free. I rolled past the clubhouse. A new bulletin board stood where the old one used to sag under tape and secrecy. This one gleamed with clean glass and crisp white notices, meeting minutes, vendor lists, monthly expenses, all printed clearly. Nothing blacked out. Someone had even added a small sign at the bottom. "Transparency serves everyone." I slowed down long enough to take it in. The neighborhood felt different, airier, like someone had opened all the windows at once. Down at the park, smoke curled lazily from a pair of big steel grills. The HOA, now run by people who actually lived here, had organized a community BBQ. Kids darted between picnic tables. A country playlist drifted from a speaker near the gazebo. People brought lawn chairs, coolers, and bowls of side dishes that all tasted like someone had taken the time to make them instead of rushing to fill a slot. I pulled the truck into a curb spot. A few residents nearby nudged each other, but not the way they used to. Not with suspicion or gossip. More like you'd point out someone who'd shoveled your sidewalk without being asked. Howard spotted me almost instantly. He waved one arm over his head, nearly sloshing the lemonade in his other hand. "There he is," he called. "The man who retired our tyrant." I laughed. "Just drove my truck. You all did the rest." "Yeah, well," he said, grinning. "Your truck did half the talking." People started approaching, some shy, some enthusiastic, all grateful. A man in a camo ball cap held out his hand. "I'm Tyler. Just wanted to say thanks." Sheila fined me twice for parking half an inch on the sidewalk. Half an inch. I measured it. A woman carrying a toddler on her hip stepped in next. "She threatened to tow my husband's work van. We never had proof she made up the rule until you showed it was fake." An older resident clasped my forearm with both hands. "Son, we lived under her like she was royalty. We thought that's how HOAs had to be. Turns out, we were wrong." Every time I opened my mouth to respond, another voice chimed in. Gratitude had a rhythm to it here, a steady wave of people finally letting themselves speak. Near the grill, Marlene was reviewing a printout with a couple of homeowners. When she saw me, she excused herself and walked over with that measured stride of hers. "You look less like a man expecting a tow truck," she said. Hard not to feel lighter. "Enjoy it," she said. "You earned it." "And the seizure?" I asked. "Any updates? County's still auditing the whole thing," she replied. "Might take weeks. But the damage is done. Her route is locked down for good." She glanced around the park. "You see this? This is the impact. Not the hearing, not the freeze. This. People grilling together under a sky that didn't feel heavy anymore." Howard cleared his throat loudly. "All right. Before everyone stuffs themselves into a nap, we've got something." A small crowd gathered as he ducked behind a table and returned holding a rectangular object wrapped in brown paper. "This," he said, presenting it with mock ceremony, "is from all of us." I took the package, peeled back the paper, and froze. It was a framed photograph of my delivery truck parked in my driveway the morning the freeze order was signed. Sunlight glinted off the windshield. No red slips, no toe marks, just a truck where it belonged. Beneath the picture, a little engraved plate read, "Because documentation beats intimidation." I blinked hard, trying to swallow the sudden tightness in my chest. "You didn't have to." "We wanted to," a woman said. "You reminded us we deserved better." Marlene tilted her head, studying the engraving. "Accurate," she said, then smirked. But I might have added, "Finally someone fought back." A cheer rose around us, warm, not explosive. More like relief, finally allowed to take a deep breath. A teenager carrying a plate of brisket lifted it like a toast. "For real, dude. You fixed our HOA." I shook my head. "No. We fixed it. You all voted. You all pushed back." "Yeah," the teen said, grinning. "But you threw the first punch." "Legal punch," Marlene corrected. Howard leaned closer. "You know they're asking you to run for the board next year, right?" I groaned. "Let me enjoy the BBQ before you ruin my day." He laughed so loud, half the pavilion turned. The sun drifted lower as families lingered under the trees. Kids raced down the hill. Neighbors traded stories. Someone handed me a burger piled too high to eat politely. I didn't care. The world tasted better today. After the grills cooled and people began packing up, I carried the framed photo back to my truck. I set it on the passenger seat, adjusted it once, then closed the door gently. Driving home, the streets felt familiar in a way they hadn't in months. The houses weren't obstacles. The neighbors weren't watchers. The mailbox wasn't a threat. It was a neighborhood again. I pulled into my driveway, parked, and sat there for a quiet moment as the engine settled. My truck prop restored felt like more than a vehicle now. It was proof, a reminder, a victory symbol that smelled faintly of diesel and hope. I looked at the clean windshield, the unmarked hood, the empty street. Transparency isn't optional, I thought. Not anymore. The clubhouse lights glinted off the framed plaque on my passenger seat as I rolled past the HOA gate, the new posted notices still sealed behind glass like proof the nightmare was over. The air felt lighter, pressed clean by accountability rather than fear. And my truck, once a target, now moved through the community with the quiet authority of something restored, not spared. Justice isn't loud, it's steady. And as neighbors nodded from the park tables, I realized the freeze order didn't just remove a president, it reset the standard for everyone who would ever hold that clipboard again. Finally, someone fought back, and this time the record stayed visible for anyone who cared to read it.